Welcome to Town Hall, everybody, on this beautiful summer day. The humidity is broken. We have a regular town board meeting tonight, many matters on the town agenda. I'd like to start our meeting with our deputy clerk taking attendance, please.
Yes, on a roll call, Councilman Troy? Present. Councilman Divany?
Here.
Councilman Valentine?
Here.
Councilman Batari?
Here.
And Supervisor Stewart?
Here.
I would ask Esther Baitler to please lead us in the
All
pledge.
right, Esther.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Esther. And we have a special treat for you tonight, knowing that it's your birthday. Courtesy of the staff here, if you could just come up. Esther is one of our most loyal participants in town. Esther wants to say.
I just want to thank all of you for this cake for my birthday, and it shows how many years I've been dedicated by coming here and ignoring all of you for the sidewalks, the bus shelter, time we got it. But thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank Dennis, who's put up with me for many years. He's been my boss and mentor.
All right. So moving on, tonight we have the a public comment period, but we also have a public hearing on a zoning matter to do with our moratorium on sort of cell tower related apparatus. And let me see when that's supposed to start. 8 o'clock. Okay, we got a little time then. Great. So I'll make a motion to open our public comment period. Do I have a second? From Jerry Butari, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. As usual, we'll keep our comments succinct, to the point, and we welcome perspective on matters that are on the agenda and also matters that you think are of importance that might not be on the agenda but should be. So we'll start out with Frank Fernario.
I'm going to beat 3 minutes this time.
Thank you,
It's only
Frank.
going to be 3 questions. My name's Frank Fernario. I'm a resident of Orangetown for over 62 years. My expertise in real estate valuation properties exceeds 50 years in many capacities, including hearing officer for the 9th Judicial District. I want to comment at the last town board meeting. I was not here, but I was disappointed in the information that the assessor, town assessor, and the appraiser for the town, what lack, I should say, of completeness in the statement. They just met some numbers. But let me complete the 3 questions, and if there's any minutes left, I'm not going to let you get away with it. I'll do something. Question 1, when did the town assessor receive the change in equalization rate? Question number 2, what date did he advise this town board of that action? What was happening? And number 3, when did he file an official complaint about the proposed equalization rate? Okay? I still got a minute and a half, and I'll use that for...
Well, we appreciate those questions.
Pardon?
So those are great questions, so thank you for that.
Well, I'd like to know. Yeah. I would say, though, it'd be great if you make public what grounds the assessor used in grieving the equalization rate that was proposed by the state. And I'd like to say also, because of my skills in real estate for many, many years, I did a complimentary review of all the town board members. Not going to tell you numbers. I visited every property. I got the tax bills of every board member. And I want you to know, of the 5 years, none are overassessed. But on the other hand, and it's nothing to worry about, 2 of you are underassessed. But you're not the only 2 in this town. Many are underassessed because of what I say is the sloppy operation of the town assessor. But anyway, with that, it's 54 seconds. I'll be generous and donate the time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fernario. Amy Pritchett?
Good evening, Amy Pritchett, 111 South Main Street, Pearl River, New York. Good evening. I have a few questions for the town board relative to the agreement reached with Aloof. Clean Air for Orangetown was extremely shocked to learn that Aloof will bear no responsibility for the hundreds of complaints waged over the past year. $12,500 hardly makes a difference when you are smelling burnt plastic on most days. And should anyone become sick as a result of the noxious odors and possible toxic air, who will be held responsible? I want to be able to connect the dots, as the timeline doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When did President of Aloof, Susan Rosenberg, sign the agreement? Was she present in court on June 6th or anywhere in the building? Who actually notarized the agreement, and was Susan Rosenberg present to be notarized? Did Dennis Michaels see this agreement for the first time on June 6th? As you may not individually or collectively have answers at this time, I am providing my notes here so all the questions can be seen. I would appreciate responses to the questions presented. In addition, if an agreement was reached prior to the June 6th court date, why wasn't Clean Air for Orangetown notified? To find out what happened in an email sent to a distribution list of 72 people remains insensitive and lacked any confidentiality. Last year, the board discussed and was amenable to appointing a Citizens Advisory Board, actually suggested by Dr. Kathy Kelly, and to date, that has not happened. I would like to formally request that a board be appointed and that this board have an opportunity to speak with and possibly be afforded the task of assisting with the hiring of a replacement for John Giordella. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Selvam? Thank you. Yep, you did. There you go, Tom. You need an extra copy?
Do you have one more?
I'll get one from Cherry. It's good. Sorry, Allison.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
That's okay.
I'll make-
I'm actually going to read an email from last week or 2 weeks ago because no one answered me. Actually, one person answered me. Allison Selvam, Blauvelt, New York. I left the meeting 2 weeks ago and have several observations to share with regard to Aloof Plastics. Firstly, Aloof arrived in Orangetown in 1986. From that time until 2012, the Rockland County Health Department and Gregory Price had handled most complaints about Aloof odor. If you foil the records, you will find these complaints. I have copies of many of them, and I have two dated all the way back to 2006. Why didn't the health department ever involve the town? I don't know. Why was Aloof allowed to expand to the point without your knowledge of all these issues? I don't know, and it's still a huge mystery. After 2013, nobody knew where to complain. It wasn't until February, March of 2016 when I made a general statement about the noxious odors from Aloof on Facebook did it spark public communication and cohesiveness. That is when I learned about the health department no longer monitoring Aloof. My neighbor and I complained to the health, police, and fire departments for years. We were even paid a visit by 2 Aloof representatives in 2010 and 11. I wrote an email to Andy Stewart stating my concerns in 2014 about Aloof. I've stated this several times. Part of the problem is the disconnect between departments. I'm sure someone from the building department was aware of the issues. I know Donald Brenner certainly was aware, and I have the documentation that proves it. Secondly, I'm happy with the progress the town board has made in this case. I'm happy that Aloof will install more filtration and that their permit will be stricter. I'm happy the town has invested in a public health engineer position and will begin air testing. But Aloof will never change if they are not held accountable. I'm hopeful the odor issue will be resolved. With Aloof's track record, I am doubtful. Lastly, the money is not the issue, Mr. Edwards. As my husband, Dan Sullivan, stated, if that is what you think, then you just don't get it. The fact that this company has been allowed to reside here, grow, and break town code with any true accountability and repercussions for their actions is reprehensible. The fact that you find it necessary after 15 months of coming down to town meetings to suddenly lecture us because of your perceived mistreatment of Dennis Michaels is ridiculous. Where have you been all this time? Where was the advice for the past 15 months? If you spoke with Mr. Michaels before the town board meeting 2 weeks ago, then you should have provided the public with an explanation first. You said you spoke with him and still no explanation on why we settled. Why is it so important for the town and for you to fight aloof and not settle? Because they and you are representing the residents of Orangetown. If you feel this is in the best interest of our town, then explain. Instead, you settled and let them off the hook while Donald Brenner sat in the back of the room delighted. You've paved a way for all the manufacturers in Orangetown to violate town code. You failed us. It makes it very difficult to focus on the achievements the board has accomplished with this problem. What good is it to have these manufacturers here if we cannot enforce them to follow town code? They will destroy our town if we cannot keep them in check. Aloof has robbed me of my enjoyment of my property. They are a nuisance, and many studies prove the negative health implications of plastics. The tests that Aloof claimed to have cleared them are bogus. I look forward to hearing the reason why Dennis Michaels decided to do what he did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Barbara Dello?
Today, I want to speak from the heart about the safety of some of our residents and the humanity of our community. I'm a longtime resident of the town, and for the past 6 years, I've been a home caretaker for my dad. During that time, I became very aware of the needs of all seniors and the very special needs of our stay-at-home seniors. And many people want to stay in their home, and sometimes it's the most affordable option. So I wanted to make you guys aware as well, with all due respect. I think the most primary needs are affordability. As our town becomes more upscale progressively, it becomes more and more difficult for seniors to afford to live here. Personal safety is a huge issue. Falls, isolation, and God bless the police and the ambulance people who are wonderful, but maybe we should put a little more resources and training to help them to take care of this population. Safety is a huge issue. I have had home health workers into the house, and I will tell you about 50% I never want back. About 40% are okay, and you're afraid to say no because you may get someone worse, and about 10% are good. I could tell you horror stories. So finding safe help is a huge, huge issue. And sometimes people do without help rather than have strangers who might steal or hurt them into their home. Addressing these needs need not be expensive and can easily fall within the scope of what's appropriate for government. I know the Office of the Aging has quite a few services available, how sometimes they're confusing to access. Anyone try going on there and pressing 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10? Most often seniors must rely on unfamiliar strangers for help or travel to distant day programs. I believe as a town we need a visible Support Our Seniors initiative right here at the local level. And I can't stress this enough. I think raising awareness of our respect and our support for our seniors alone would be a very good first step. Simple but critical things like reaching out to churches and community-based organizations and encouraging them to develop lists of safe helpers, establishing a simple, private, easy reporting system for mistreatment, and firmly enforcing zero-tolerance policy for senior and abuse and neglect could be established, and believe me, this is needed. Oh boy.
Thank you.
Okay, there are other things. I wrote a letter which I gave to the Senior Advisory Committee, and they were very supportive, and I would like to give it to each of you.
Thank you.
There are more ambitious things could be done as well, but that has to be discussion. But I think we have to dedicate one employee of the town to really look into the needs of our seniors, for their safety and for our community. and for the welfare of our residents. Seniors are longtime residents. In fact, they are the very ones who
Ma'am,
helped
I would
build
ask
this
you to
community.
finish up your statement
I'll
out of
finish up.
respect
This is
for
my
others.
last sentence. We owe them a great debt of gratitude for that, and we should welcome and respect them and support them as they and make them feel like they're continually an important part of our community. And our budget is $170,000 out of a budget of millions in what we spend of seniors, and that pales in comparison, I'm told by the finance department, to what we spend on our youth and even things like landscaping. So I would really ask you to consider this. Thank you so much.
Larry Vaile. I hate to be the taskmaster, but we do have to try to stick to the 3 minutes. Otherwise, folks who are waiting to speak are unfairly treated.
Hopefully I'll be 2 minutes. Larry Vaile, Tappan, and I'm here tonight representing the Sparkill Creek Watershed Alliance. And the reason I'm here is to support one of the items on your agenda tonight. It's number 8, which is an application for a watershed planning grant. And just very briefly, it seems like there's a lot of planning that's always required. And a lot of activity around planning and seemingly not on doing. But I can tell you that in the case of the Sparkill watershed, it's a very troubled watershed and needs quite a bit of support. In particular, the problems involve flooding and I would say, confused land use and difficult commercial situation along Route 303, and they're all kind of intertwined together. So this is really just a first step in getting some real improvements in the Sparkill Creek, and I'll tell you why it's a first step. We had there was a previous application for quite a bit more money for a flood mitigation plan involving green infrastructure 6 months ago or so, and I was in on the kind of post-mortem of why we didn't get that grant. That was a town grant, and that the supervisor applied for. And one of the things that the people at the Department of Environmental Conservation said was, well, you lost points because you didn't have a watershed plan. So this grant is fairly modest. It has a pretty modest requirement for matching. It's only 15% for the town. And I really encourage you to take this first step. So we look forward also to helping the town in achieving a watershed plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for all your work on the watershed. Let's see, that's it for folks who signed in. By the raise of hands, is anybody here to speak during the public comment period? We do have the public hearing later about the communications. Yes, ma'am? Yeah, right. Thanks, sorry. How you doing?
Hi, I'm Susan Nemesti. I live in Palisades. I'm just here to speak very quickly about Hightor Animal Shelter. I'm a big animal lover myself. I have several rescue dogs and cats. The current proposed property by the Homes for Heroes will require extensive and costly cleanup before the shelter can be built. Not to mention, it's being situated next to a very active railroad track is not an optimal place for already traumatized animals. The unending bureaucracy is wasting both time and money the shelter could be spending on new facilities. I would like to ask the board to consider giving Hightor space at the Rockland Psychiatric Center as part of its redevelopment plan. I have a copy of the revised 2013 draft of the plan for the psychiatric center, and I was flipping through the pages, and there seems to be plenty of acreage there that is yet undeveloped, and there's really no plan for it. I know you have that new center for Chase going in. The shelter needs about 3 acres, and according to the design plan and goals in the draft, Hightor would fit in perfectly. Some of the design and site planning goals seem to be to preserve open space on the site, maintain open space character, to preserve existing mature specimen trees, among some of its goals, to minimize the visual impacts of development, and to work with local not-for-profit organizations to the extent of their needs, and encourage pedestrian-friendly sites. I think maybe with some good design, Hightor could maybe combine with a dog walking park or some of the parks for, just with its design and everything, it could probably fit in very well and very nicely, keeping a park-like setting as well as providing a very nice place for the animal shelter. So I really would hope that somewhere in that 100 and some acres, Not to mention located right off of exit 6. It would be a very convenient place. The current proposed property just doesn't seem to be moving anywhere. I don't know whose end, if it's the government or the town or what's going on, but it doesn't seem to be going, yet money is being spent by the shelter, you know, just to maintain where they're at. So I'd appreciate
Thank you.
knowing. Thank you.
I'll clarify that later. Raise of hands. Anybody else here to speak, public comment? Barbara, you already spoke. Way in the back there, last row.
Hello, my name is Carrie Capella, and I've been a resident of Pearl River for almost 39 years and a homeowner since 2008. The reason I'm speaking tonight is to urge the town board to give caution, giving permission or zoning changes to the Goldstein Group, who has purchased land on the corner of Middletown Road and East Lewis Avenue. Middletown Road is already a racetrack connecting Nanuet and the rest of Pearl River. By giving permission to this developer to possibly overextend the current permissions for what the land is zoned for, the town would potentially be creating a nightmare for the citizens of Orangetown and Pearl River specifically. The traffic already on this main road is a problem, as it is a two-lane road, not four-lane road as in other parts of the town or Clarkstown, and that is with 3 lights approximately a quarter of a mile apart. It can take anywhere from 35 seconds up to 145 seconds, as I counted today, to make a left turn already from Lewis Avenue, Forest Avenue, or Brightwood Avenue onto Middletown Road. I urge you to join me over the next few weeks at various times of the day to see the traffic that's on that road before giving any cautionary extensions to the Goldstein Group before they go forth with their plans as they're advertising on their website. An extra traffic light, which is what they're suggesting as per their diagram, is also not the solution. This would be more than New York City has on their main avenues if you measure the ratio for streets. As citizens of Clarkstown, we have chosen not to live as citizens in Orangetown, we have chosen not to live in Clarkstown. We chose to avoid living near Route 59 for noise, safety, and privacy reasons. If the town allows the Goldstein Group to go beyond the current laws, you are selling out every resident of the town that you are claiming to protect, and we beg you and urge you to be very cautious with this group. We do not want the fast food restaurant they're advertising or speaking of when members of our town have spoken to them on the phone. We do not want the huge auto chain automotive store, as they are claiming that they are trying to sell their space for. We do not want the storage facility around the corner from an elementary school where children are walking to because Pearl River does not provide for busing for all of residents of the students who goes to those schools. We do not want this across the street from a church that has functions there almost every day of the week. Please fight for us, the people who you took an oath to protect, and hold this group to the current zone allowances. We beg you to keep Pearl River the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Hands raised? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Eileen.
Good evening, members of the board and the TV audience watching tonight. I was one of 4 Orangetown residents who attended the last of the governor's shared services tax savings plan. It was at Dominican College, and County Exec Ed Day chaired the meeting, and we were represented with about 6 people from Pomona, Stony Point, I believe, and Ramapo. And for the other 3 people are also here tonight. We're like a block. We just follow each other anymore. As you know, by August 1st, the town of Orangetown has to provide a detailed plan to the panel of members that exist at the moment on the county level, who will review and submit to the governor whatever ideas the town of Orangetown has come up with to save money on that shared services plan. Most of the people in town know nothing about this. It was created in Albany, passed down to the county execs of all 57 counties in New York State, and they were told to come up with ways to save money. As of today, can you let the people of Orangetown know if you have received any suggestions from the community or department heads, and if any of you have attended any of these 3 public meetings? We have the right to know what suggestions you will present to the panel. In my opinion, we should not propose sharing any of our town equipment as far as the police department, the parks, etc., the sewers, with any other municipality. The Orangetown school districts have opted not to participate, which is interesting because they could participate, but they have chosen not to. Now, most of us know that the taxes that we pay are higher at the school level than on the town level. So why they have opted not to provide some ways to save money is interesting and worth noting. The money the money that we save supposedly is no guarantee that we will be reimbursed in that same amount. It's up to the state controller, who lives in the Bronx, to decide what percentage of the dollar amount that we save will come back to us. Ironically, the same governor who wants free tuition and room and board for the millenniums in state colleges wants us to come up with savings. How is he planning to find monies for this giveaway program? Perhaps this will be part of his presidential slate when he runs for office following the Bernie Sanders agenda. Please provide full details on the Chase. I don't think the Chase pilot program is on the agenda tonight, but if it were, I should like to know what the agreement does read. But this is an important issue. I think we can all come up with ways to save money. I work on the Board of Elections. I thought maybe we could print less ballots. Mike came up with some great ideas also. Susan Nemesti, my neighbor, has done, you have no idea the hours she has put into High Tour. She does their linens. She brings old newspapers to them. She raises money. She does everything for High Tour. And bringing it to Rockland Psychiatric Center property is a great idea. It's a great site. We have to have a shelter in Rockland County.
Thank you,
By
Eileen.
law. I don't know what the lady was talking about that zone change, but I think it's something we could
can
look at.
respond to people's questions to the best of our ability.
You know what?
Once
You
people
know
are
what?
finished with their comments.
I know I'm a nuisance. I know, but you know what? We elect you. You run around town, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. We come before a board. It's that clicker. Shut them up after 3 minutes. You know what?
Eileen,
You're here for the people,
I think
not
you've-
for the buzzer.
You've expressed yourself very well.
I know. I'm always at it.
All right, by raise of hands, anybody else here for public comment? Mr. Kleiner.
I want to thank Larry Vaile for the supporting the Sparkill Creek Watershed grant, which is necessary and will be beneficial for the Sparkill Creek Watershed. And just one other brief comment. My time ran out last time when I started to address this, and that is John Giardello, after many years of dedicated service, is, as you guys know, is leaving next month, and possibly more than any other town position, what the board decides to do in filling that will have implications for many years to come, and the discussion about aloof earlier, Rockland Site. I mean, anything that the board does that affects planning and zoning, pretty much anything other than directly taxes and economic development, well, it includes economic development as well. The person who heads that department, especially here compared to Clarkstown, where they have, for example, about 5 people who do the director's job here, is critically important. So I just had one question I guess you can address later. 2 questions. One, has it been posted or
Yes.
advertised? So I guess
Yes.
that answers the second question is, could it be workshopped? But I think the challenge is going to be, should there be a planner, should there be an engineer, or ideally, could a person actually apply who has all those skills? And given, again, the fact that the town of Orangetown has so much combined in that one position, it may have to be. Those people, as you know, are so incredibly difficult to find, but it's really important, and we look forward to hearing more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, raise the hands. Who else is here to speak tonight? Mike Mandel, you have your hand up. Sorry. It looked like your hand was being waved by Frank Fernario. So.
He's got a short sleeve shirt on. I got a jacket.
There you go.
Good evening, Supervisor Stewart, members of the town board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. Disregarding Mr. Kleiner's comments, definitely whoever places John Giardello must be an engineer. That's the person that's going to be running the project review meetings, which I attend every other week, and the planning board meetings. We need somebody like that. That's a mainstay. If they're not an engineer, they can't go along with things. It makes everything else mute, and we can't work along with that. In regard to Mr. Finario's comments, Clarkstown had the equalization rates back in the end of March. And in April, they had people up in Albany trying to get bills passed to protect the how much money would be, the percentages in raises that would affect the taxes of that town. So they're working on it since April. And apparently they will have a bill, has to do with things only changing 1% from what I don't know the whole crux of it, but they've been working on it since then. It'd be nice to know when the members of the town board found out about the 44% equalization rate. I want to thank the board too on number 13 as a member of the Pearl River Parks and Activity Committee that's hosting the fireworks. I want to thank the Highway Department that's going to be supplying the trash receptacles, dumpsters, caution tapes, and a few other things along with the police department, make it a safe and great night. The carnival is this week from the 22nd to the 24th in the Central Avenue Field. Proceeds, all part of the proceeds are used to pay for the fireworks, the band, and the other costs. I gave everybody a copy of my questions from last, the 6th, regarding the equalization rate, questions that I had from Mr. Kenny, who was not kept here to answer any of them. I sent it into the board and supervisor. I've gotten responses back from Brian Kenny. The one response I haven't gotten a clear, specific answer is, why has our full market value rates increased by 13.75%? Whether it's a home or a condo, they all do. I surveyed the town. I went to different parts of this town, villages and whatever. We're from Grandview to Nyack to Pearl River to Vogel. They're all 13.75. I'd like to know exactly why 13.75%. It hasn't been answered in his questions, and I think your office has his two responses to me. Mm-hmm. And the final thing was, at last meeting, I also asked, in regards to the federal lawsuit where we hired a separate attorney. The lawsuit is 18 pages long. It can be obtained from the Southern District of New York. It is not confidential in nature. The Sheriff's Department, the Police Academy, the Sheriff, the police chiefs of Piermont, Spring Valley, Orangetown are all being sued. Why didn't we combine with some of the other people to hire one attorney to represent all of us, or do we have that much money that we can throw around? And how much money, because the resolution did not say how much money would be expended. Is this an open account that can go from 5 to 10 to 50 to 100 or $200,000? It would be nice, and we should know how much it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. Any other hands up for public comment? Mr. Brenner?
Good evening. I was not going to make a comment on this, however, my name was mentioned, and I wish some facts would be straightened out first. Aloof Plastics came into this town in 1978. Second, the DEC, the EPA, Orangetown, nobody produced any kind of evidence that they produced any kind of hazardous material. Third, nobody produced any evidence that they are solely responsible for the odor problems in that area. Fourth, I did not make the arrangement, nor did I make the agreement, nor did I represent them on the criminal action that took place in this area. So somebody making a remark that I was smiling is absolutely untrue. I did not represent them. They were represented by other attorneys. So please have facts be done properly, get the results done, and let's hope that it does get cleaned up. Thank you.
Any other hands up for public comment? Heather in the back there?
Good evening, Heather Hurley, Pearl River. On Friday, June 17th, the Rockland County Supreme Court held a court conference to get an update on the Anila Tech issue. Rob Magrino, who's a town attorney here in Orangetown, stated that it was the position of the town that Anila Tech's application was expired because more than 2 years have passed since receiving an approval, and it has not received a building permit or signed site plan. I'm urging this board to speak or communicate with Mr. Magrino on this issue and issue a statement from the town board which would officially support this as well, so that the Rockland County Supreme Court has a copy of it, and to support the town's position that the 2 years have passed and that the application has since expired. Also, 2 weeks ago, or a week ago at the workshop, there was talk of a new town hall. There was talk about what to do with the old building department if it's moved here. And I just wanted to suggest, I know it's a little bit ahead of ourselves, it's probably way down the line, but the town should possibly explore an Orangetown Senior Center or Community Center in the current building department space. Also, I just wanted to announce to the public, if anybody's watching out there, that there is a planning board meeting this coming a week from Wednesday, June 28th, regarding the application from 2004 for a new 170,000 square foot facility on the Aloof property. I think it's something that the community needs to attend, whether you live in the immediate area or if you live in surrounding towns in Orangetown, to know what's going on around you. I also agree with Susan's high tour proposal. We spoke about it several weeks ago in Palisades at the community center. And if there's a way to explore that and move ahead with that, I think that's a great idea. Also, there are a lot of residents' concerns. I just want to reiterate what the other speaker said earlier about that Goldstein group and the proposal on Middletown Road. I really think it's something that the town board needs to look into, and they need to take community concerns seriously about that. And that is it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Anybody else here to speak during public comment? Seeing no hands up, I'll hear a motion to close public comment period from Divney, second from over here from Jerry. All in favor say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Typically, the town board takes a minute or two to try to respond. There's been so many items mentioned. Maybe I'll just lead off. Being here full time, there's just a number of clarifications. Number one, the assessor has answered questions. And we can always get more information from him, and I thank Mr. Mandel for submitting, and we can follow up where there's lack of clarity. The issue with the equalization rate has been a subject of debate and concern going back probably 5 or 6 months with outreach to the state agencies and work with the schools, and it's an evolving matter, which is of a concern to the town board as well, where the split school districts, Orangetown side, is looking at rather extraordinary increase in school taxes versus the Clarkstown side. Just in the matter of Aloof, I just want to mention quickly because Mrs. Pritchett mentioned, the bearing no responsibility. The lawsuit is one of 3 ways in which the town has battled a company which has dragged its feet, pointed fingers, and generally failed to aggressively take responsibility for its odor problem. In my view, it's less of important compared to the DEC permit process and the ZBA's performance standards review. Nobody here is letting Aloof off the hook. Much to the contrary, there's, as Ms. Sullivan was pointing out, there's been a tremendous amount invested with the town and the public groups advocating for really strict DEC permitting standards, which are coming to a head now that the draft DEC permit is online, available for public comment. The town tonight will be voting on several matters related to this, and I think that we're already in the company, has been forced to make repairs which have already begun, and the building department's issued permits for that. So we have a real process happening here with a substantial impact on the company's operations. And the question is going to be, ultimately, how robust a DEC permit and odor control fix are we going to get? And what are we going to do if there's still odors coming out of there after they say they've fixed everything? And I think the answer is we're going to keep on fighting until there's no odors. I wanted to thank Barbara Della for doing what you said you thought needed to happen, which is to really raise awareness about the necessity of adequate and affordable senior care and safety issues. I think it's a great point. High Tour is, you may not be aware of this, but the board of directors and the group are directly engaged with the site off of Western Highway. It's not a town proposal, and it's not town-owned land. It's certainly something that I've supported, and that I think most people in the town welcome. And that, to the best of my knowledge, is their ongoing desire is to move to that location, and that's what's been expressed to me, and I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of that. I think it's a nice complementary land use to what the town has accomplished down there with drainage and green infrastructure, and the Homes for Heroes, of course, with their project. So that's what's on the drawing board. It's entirely a ball that's being carried by the High Tour, and they've received every possible support from this town. And I appreciate you volunteering, some other people too. And we recently had an event over at Tappan Zee High School that raised $15,000, which was a lot of fun. My office hasn't received a petition for any kind of zone change from the Goldstein Group, but it's certainly something to watch out for, and I appreciate folks bringing it up tonight. On shared services, the mandate from the governor is that the county executive provide a shared services plan. The municipalities who will be named in the plan and presumably encouraged to share services can opt out if they want. And so I participated in some of those meetings as well, and I don't think anybody's come up with any blinding insights yet about a great way of sharing services in order to save money. I think everybody in this room wants to save money, and while maintaining the town's autonomy and control over critical functions. And so, as far as I know, we don't have, the group as a whole, and the county executive in particular, has a deadline, and we can participate or opt out to the extent that we feel is appropriate. Just a note on the building department directorship and John G., who's receiving accolades tonight, which I think are well deserved. That's a civil service job description. The town can make minor efforts to amend it, but it's not something that you can just rewrite wholesale. And so it's been advertised, and everybody should keep their fingers crossed that we'll find a great pool of candidates. And I'm sure some really strong candidates will emerge from that. I just wanted to mention, yeah, that'll probably do it on the sort of the matters that have been raised, just to provide easy clarifications where possible. The people should always remember that if you have a complex policy question or one that can't be answered on the spot, which is entirely likely to happen when people come in, it is typical for people to submit a question, to my office, to a department head, get information back, and oftentimes information requests can be resolved in that way. And then when there's a need to really bring something up that hasn't been answered, we hope that everybody will do that. So I'll finish there. Folks want to respond to things I missed in any particular way? No, you're all right. Okay, Tom?
The Goldstein Group, as Annie stated, I've seen pictures of what they proposed online, but I'm not aware of any petition to the town board or the zoning, ZBA or the planning board. Again, the fact that a group goes online and posts something doesn't mean it necessarily is going to happen. I've actually had clients have looked at that piece of property, and I looked at the zoning for that particular piece of property, and I advised them against certain uses because of the uses that are allowed in that zone. So, again, the town board always takes the concerns of the citizens in, and it is on the borderline of residential and the CO zone, and there's a lot of houses across the street, and that was one of the concerns when I talked to a number of clients who were looking at it. So we do take it into account, and for the record, we haven't received any application yet. Allison, we talked last week, and I'll reiterate, I can't speak for the deputy town attorney. I don't think as to why he came to the agreement that he did. I mean, looking at the agreement and how well it was drafted, I'd only assume he knew he was going to do that, not just that day, but in advance, which is disappointing to me as a town board member because he was given a directive not to settle the case. You do lose something when you settle. I think I talked to Ms. Sullivan about working on a revision of the town code, which would make it progressive of fines for violations. So by settling with Aloof and not getting at least one conviction on the charges, you lose the right to go after them for a second time if it happens in the next 5 years. That's what I'm working on right now with Rob Magrino. So you do lose out. Because if it happens again, we would have had one violation, and now you're at progressive discipline, progressive fines. But, you know, Aloof made out on it, and it went against the town board wishes, and, you know, I've already stated my position on what should happen. I don't have to state it again. No, I was at the gym today listening to Iron Maiden, and there's a song called Die With Your Boots On If You're Gonna Die. And that means fight. You know, don't lay down. And that's the most disappointing thing. The deputy town attorney laid down. He should have fought.
Any others commenting tonight? All right, so we'll leave it at that for now. We do have a public hearing scheduled that I'd like to turn our attention to. This public hearing is on the topic of a request by Column Seal Company for an exemption to the moratorium law that the town recently passed related to cell tower type installations. I know there are a whole range of different ways that radio communications take place, and some are potentially more obtrusive than others. That moratorium provides for applications, you know, essentially the planning board's barred from hearing them, but in this case we have a petition to allow the planning board to hear an application. It doesn't mean the application is approved. It means that an application which was before the planning board can continue to be reviewed by the planning board. And that's, that actually, because we have a moratorium, it requires a public hearing, and we appreciate the patience of everybody involved. Is anybody here to speak on this matter? I'm assuming, Mr. Brenner, you look like you're about to get up. Right, speak for the petition. Why don't I make a, thank you. Make a motion to open the public hearing. Have a second over here. From Valentine, all in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. This is for you, Teresa. Not sure what it is. Mr. Brenner, could you just describe briefly
primarily
sort of the
this-
apparatus involved? And
Primarily, this is an antenna, very similar to something that you would use as a ham radio or something of that sort, which only receives information. It does not send out information. And things got kind of held up. We started in November of 2016. And things got kind of held up because they wanted us to go to the town's consultant to find out if it fell under the antenna law, which is in the town of Orangetown. So after they reviewed it, and they said, no, it is not part of that. Now, we had the structures checked, and it was not part of that. So they really got delayed over a year and a half, doing all these studies on something which really shouldn't have even been done, because it's a simple, really simple ham radio antenna. And that's primarily, and we were before the board. We still have to go before the board. We still have to meet all the requirements of the code. So primarily, we're just asking permission to continue based on the fact of the hardship. A great amount of money and time was spent on this application.
thank you for that description. Is anybody, nobody signed in to speak on this. Is anybody here to speak during the public? Yes, sir. Is there a hand up over here? Or is that just a?
I've never attended one of these meetings before, so I don't know how to comment.
You just come up to the podium, say your name.
Voice my concerns with the application.
If you come up to, absolutely, come on up. There's a podium here. And if you just say your name, where you live, and take a minute or two to inform the board of any concern or perspective you might have.
My name is Mike Policastro. I live in Old Tapan, which is approximately 350 feet away from the subject's property. I was recently notified that this structure was in front of the board. So I wasn't able to really prepare, but in doing some just immediate research in regards to these towers, I know that there are unknown health concerns and different things that appear with these type of structures being around residential areas. Like I said, the structure is going to be 350 feet away from my home. I have 5 young kids, so I'm concerned because I don't know what the long-term effects are. There is another tower. I don't know if it's the same tower or if it's a similar tower that is approximately 150 feet away from where they want to put this one, which was recently erected, I would say, within the last 2 years. A neighbor of mine gave me a letter to read because he couldn't attend. Would you like me to read it or just submit it to you guys, or?
It's
short.
If it's short, you want to read it into the
I
record,
can read
that's
it.
fine, and it'll save us.
Okay, so this is an email he sent to me. He sent it to Mrs. Coopersmith by mistake. My name is Michael S. Rowe, residing at 336 Orangeburg Road, Old Tapan, New Jersey. I reside on the second lot south of Mr. Skay's property. I would like to object and oppose his proposal of erecting an antenna on his property. It is not only a detriment to our property value, but it also affects our quality of life. As a planning board is aware, there is already a 150-foot antenna on the adjacent lot. I was planning on attending the meeting tonight, but due to family commitments, I will not be able to attend. If you have any questions, please contact me and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is anybody else here to speak on the matter?
Just so the people speaking, we're not here to vote on whether the tower gets approved or not. We enacted a moratorium regarding cell towers and cell antennas. All we're saying is the moratorium says if there's an existing application and it's a hardship, and here they're saying there is a hardship because they've been working on this for a year and they spent a lot of money, it just allows them to go in front of the planning board to continue. So we're just going to be voting on whether to allow them to continue with the process they're already on. I just want everyone to know that.
It's a good clarification. Yes, sir. You had your hand up?
Hi. My name is Jonathan Vogel. We are the neighboring property to Mr. Skay's property where the cell tower is proposed. I'm here to ask you to upkeep the moratorium on the cell tower. There are a couple. I would love to. I just got notice very recently on this, and I know that there's been discussion, and I would love to see. I know that it was talked about that this is like a hand radio antenna, but how is that like? Is that like how tall is? Are you able to? I guess the questioning would happen later. Are you able to answer that?
This is because anything related to the design, the location, the height, it's all planning board stuff. This board is only interested in. I mean, we're all interested in everybody's well-being, but for us, it's simply a question of, shall the planning board continue to review this application or not? So we're not going to answer questions, and we're not even prepared to answer questions related to the design of the thing. And I'm personally not going to support having that kind of conversation because that's what's happening at the planning board if it continues there. You see what I'm saying? So
Okay.
the concerns need to go down there if
Okay.
the application continues.
So I understand. I appreciate that explanation. Just a couple of things, though. I think that what you're talking about is upholding the moratorium for the entire town, or just in this one instance.
We're talking about making
one exception.
An exception to a moratorium for specific reasons, and so the planning board can continue to hear an application.
To this specific
on this particular
this specific one, not
installation.
townwide.
Right.
So that's
How far he was in the for an exception because how far he was along in the process. But it can still be stopped. at the
Okay.
zoning board.
No, I understand. I mean,
The land-
it sounds to me so far, just from the comments that we hear, that that the plan is to just kick this back to the planning board and allow the exception to happen. What I just want to bring up 3 quick points on why I believe that you should not do that. Number one, our campground, the Motto of Day campground, has many children, mostly between the ages of 5 and 14, that it services each summer. And even though I'm sure that there are many studies that show that cell towers are safe, there's still a stigma, and there's still a business. We would feel that some of the parents might be afraid of having children come close and be within such a close range of the electric or radio currents or whatever. It's just a perception. It might not be actual, but it is out there, and I think that our business might suffer because of it. Another thing, I'd like to know exactly where the cell tower is going to go. Mr. Skay has difficulty gaining access to the portion of the property that's abutting our campground. We have a 40-foot road there.
So I mean, I don't want to be rude,
Yeah.
but these comments belong at the planning board. The only thing this board is considering is the question of whether the exemption petition is valid based on hardship and any other criteria by which you make an exemption to the moratorium. Anything related, like
To the actual site.
these are
Okay.
comments
So
that
I
you should have
understand.
already made at the planning board,
Yeah,
and you'll
okay.
probably get a chance to make them eventually down there.
I understand. Understand from
so-
my point of view. I didn't know the technicalities here, and I appreciate.
Yeah,
you
no, I appreciate it.
explaining
That's
them.
why we're explaining it to you.
And so, if I understand correctly, you're just deciding on whether or not, because, and I just caught a little bit of this beforehand, because they've already gone through a lot of the process, and then this got kicked back later on after spending a lot of money into the project, whether or not that would constitute an exemption to the moratorium.
Right.
Okay,
More or less.
then I'm just going to make one last point. The one point that I would make is that I think if a mistake is made early on, and it stinks that Mr. Skay put out all this money, and Mr. Brenner is an amazing attorney, but it does stink that a mistake was made early on, and that this money went out. But the bottom line is, it's not the township's requirement to make Mr. Skay whole. It is the township's requirement to make sure to uphold the standards of the town, and the standards were, because it was voted for to have this moratorium, there was obviously a vote for the public good at that point. So I would ask that even though that mistake happened, and even though Mr. Skay lost out on whatever money he spent and time, I ask that you keep the moratorium whole. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is anybody else here to speak on the matter of the temporary moratorium on telecommunications? All right, not seeing any hands up. Motion to close. Well, actually, we're going to do a continuation of the public hearing, I think. Mr. Skay.
Yeah, I'd like to-
Mr. Skay, thank you.
Just briefly, and I understand exactly what we're here for. We're the applicant. Just so the town board knows, the planning board, this has been a very long and arduous process for us, because the town board has looked, or the planning board has looked so deep into this. We hired consultants. They made us pay to hire their consultants to verify that this is receive only. It's not a cell tower. It's not a hand radio. It's a ham radio, which is a shortwave radio frequency, receive only. So I just want to make sure the town knows it's nowhere near the camp property. There's actually a cell tower that's right on the camp property. It's not anywhere near 350 feet from Mr. Policastro's house, as he suggested. This has been public knowledge. We posted signs. They've had the site plans available. People have come out to the public discussion at the planning board and voice their concerns, they're more than welcome to come. I just want to make sure the town board knows we're just doing this
So
all
there,
right.
there, the camp has a cell tower on it right now?
Oh, it's right adjacent to it.
All right.
Literally adjacent to it. And this is going to be a lot shorter.
Is that tower in Orangetown? Or
Orangetown.
All right.
Yes. It's on the property of 10 Ramland Road.
Right, by the tennis courts there.
Correct. Thank you.
I mean, I don't want to rebut the misinformation. It'll be done in the planning board when we're able to proceed, but most of the information here was incorrect.
Thank you. And then we don't have, let's see, what do we have here? In order to move forward with this, we would need to consider having a continuation of the public hearing so that we can have the secra resolutions ready. Okay. Sorry about that. Misspoke. But
Well,
we are waiting for comments by the agencies. that
We
are required.
delivered the information to the county, which I think we're obligated to do. We notified all the residents by certified mail, which we were required to do. Not all the time does the county give you an answer. They just, if we get some. Which they were.
If they fail to respond, then the 30 days clock.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm running into a time factor, that being that the planning boards and zoning boards go into a freezing situation in the month of August, and we are going to really be penalized if we could get some kind of movement subject to this letter, because I can't imagine them even comment on it, because there's nothing, they have already commented on the project with the planning board, so they know about it, and they've made their comments, so we know what their comments are. I don't know if you can incorporate that. We don't have problems with those comments, but in no way is it going to hurt the application in terms of what we have to do. I'm not.
I promise you, I will call the county planning department in the morning, and if we can get that letter back, we'll act on it as quickly as we can. Or if they can tell us they're simply not going to comment, then we'll have that information as well.
So in other words, we really can't get any action until the next town board meeting then, I assume. Is that correct?
Right.
Can I just say one more word? The planning board on their May 10th meeting voted in anticipation of a moratorium that was coming in on the 11th. It was not a law. They held me up because of a law that was coming into place the next day. That was really unfair, and I've tried to remain very calm. But I have a tenant that's been more than patient, for over a year of patient. This is not that difficult. I don't understand it, and I think it was unfair that the planning board, I don't know that they had the right to say, well, tomorrow there's supposed to be a new law. So it's unfortunate, because I was copied on the emails, and then Mr. Edwards, I really greatly appreciate you sending emails to the county and trying to make this happen for us. But it's just another delay in something that's been going on for years.
No, I appreciate
don't
that.
understand it.
Thank you. I don't know if there's that much more we can say about this right now. I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing. Do I have a second on that? From Jerry Vitale, all in favor say aye. The ayes have it.
Do the ayes have it? Because I only heard one vote, one person say aye.
I said aye.
All right, thank you.
No nays, right?
Do you have a date that you'll continue?
Yeah, we will continue it at our next meeting, or as soon as possible.
The next meeting is a workshop meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, we wish, we'll make every effort to render a decision, but we do have to follow the law, and whatever the planning board did is what they did. Right, and we're not the planning board, but we're the ones who are responding to this petition for an exemption to the moratorium.
All right. All right.
And we're trying to take care of it and provide clarity as quickly as we can.
All right, thank you.
So that's the public hearing. Moving on from there, if we go to item number 4, some of these items if we get down in the agenda further, may not have been discussed fully in workshop, but most of them have been. So this is the retaining of an environmental chemist to review the DEC's permit for aloof and related materials. I'll make a motion for this. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
From Paul Valentine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Number 5, I will send him the documents to review immediately tomorrow morning. Number 5 is the agreement for air monitoring and related services, also discussed last week. Tom, do you want to make a motion for this? Motion from Tom Divany. Do I have a second over here?
I'll second.
Second from Paul Valentine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Actually, I just identified a typo in this resolution. Sorry about that, guys. It had been corrected and then it got uncorrected. Tom, last week you said it should be 59 instead of 54.
59, yep.
And we just voted on
Not to exceed.
54, and my intent was to correct that number. So can we just, I guess I'll make a motion. Did we amend the resolution we just did, changing it from 54 to 59?
Okay, and you're making the motion?
Yes, and a second from Tom Divany. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Apologies. Number 6, we have a resolution that our attorney has as a handout, which is a secret determination related to the SCADA, which is the telemetry equipment that enables the wastewater treatment plant staff to track the functions of pump stations all across town, that kind of equipment. And so there's a secret resolution which he handed out. It classifies the action as a type 2 action. And let's see what else to say here. It describes the purpose of the investment.
I'm sorry, what item are you on?
It's not, it's a handout. I don't know. Do you have it? It's titled Secret Determination Type 2 Action Upgrade to SCADA Equipment at the Town Wastewater Treatment Plant. And the reason why we're having all these resolutions related to this is that the financing of the project requires it. So this is essentially a resolution which determines that it's type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Meaning no further review of the secret.
So just clarifying that in case anybody asks later that whether we considered its determination under secret. I'll make a motion for that determination under secret. Do I have a second? All right, Paul Valentine, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Jerry, did you get a copy of this?
No.
All right, why don't you take mine and we'll make sure it gets emailed to you.
I'm just gonna rip mine up.
Number 6 is the authorizing resolution for, again, this equipment is as I previously described in the workshop, has to do with the wastewater treatment plant and their ability to control and monitor their systems. And the resolutions here are because we're shooting for some state money to fund the project, in part as a grant and in part through zero interest financing, which we've used with other sewer projects. Environmental Facilities Corporation of the state has a clean water program, thank goodness. And that's what this resolution is about. It's a requirement of that grant application process, which I want to thank the wastewater treatment folks, engineers down there, and also our finance department, and Vicki, my assistant, for shepherding with Sylvia Welch, our hired grant writer, a lot of paperwork related to trying to get external funding for this project. So do I have a motion for this authorizing resolution? Maybe from over here. Dennis, Jerry, on a second. All right, we have a motion for the resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Valentine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 7 is authorizing a payment to Sylvia Welch, our grant writer, for this grant, specifically 10 hours of work, $65 an hour, money well spent. I'll make a motion for this resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Paul, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And thanks again to Sylvia for scrambling around to help us submit this. Number 8 is a grant application related to the Spark Hill watershed and having a plan. It's a modest amount of money, but it gets some great expertise down and to focus on the flooding problem and to create a watershed plan and identify where improvements are needed in the drainage system. This grant we discussed a bit last week, so I don't think we need to go into details. We appreciate the fact that Larry Vaile came in and his volunteer work, getting letters of support last time around was really appreciated. So do I have a motion for this grant? One from Dennis Troy, second from Jerry Bottari. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks to you guys both for that. Let's see, where does that take us to? Number 8, number 9. And also thanks to Jim Dean for his work on helping to direct our efforts to get external funding for drainage improvements along the Spark Hill Creek. Number 9 is the appointment of Wayne Romisher to our Substance Abuse Committee effective immediately. I have a motion from Dennis Troy, the liaison to that committee. Second from myself. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And a thanks to Wayne for his service to the town. Number 10 is has to do with streetlights and kind of signing up to enable ONR to put LED light fixtures in a small number of lights that the town isn't interested in taking over. And that's more or less what this agreement is about. It also directs them to go ahead and any light that's out now that's been reported or discovered, it allows them to put an LED fixture in instead of replacing it with the old stuff. I'll make a motion for this. Do I have a second from over here? From Mr. Valentine, all in favor say aye. The ayes have it. Number 11 is an access agreement for the Office of Mental Health to go into town buildings that they sold to us without removing some of their property and take their property out, chiefly old documents. I'll make a motion for this. Second from Jerry Bottari. All in favor say aye. Number 12 is the acceptance of grant monies for the police department through the county. Do we hear a motion for this one? Over here, maybe? From Paul, second from Jerry. All in favor say aye. Number 13 is assistance to the Pearl River Parks and Activity for a carnival, a Central Avenue Field. And Dennis, you want to make a motion for this? All right.
Second.
Great. We have a second from Tom Divney. And any discussion? Dennis?
No.
One of the things, we have the Pearl River Parking Authority. I know Mike's not in favor of this, but we have the Pearl River Parking Authority. And the money that's collected from the meters in Pearl River does not go into the general fund. It goes into a Pearl River Business District Parking Fund. One of the things it's going to be used for right now, coming up, is to remove telephone poles and the wires off of Central Avenue. It's in conjunction with the O&R, Cablevision, and also Verizon. All right. And one of the things, I think that the Pearl River, the Park Committee does a phenomenal job standing out in front of ShopRite, collecting money, and it's good that the community contributes, to the fireworks. But at the same time, I think in terms of how much money goes into that, it's expensive, running any of these firework displays. And I believe that it's a big event in the town, that the town should take money out of the parking authority and give it towards the subsidize to a point, just by giving additional money on the top of what you already bringing in. That would be my suggestion, in terms of the fact that we are aiding them with trash barrels, et cetera, with the carnival that's coming up, which is one of their big fundraisers for the fireworks. But I think at the same time, there is another source of income that the committee should really consider. And I would like Mike to bring it to the entire committee as a proposal.
I'll bring it up, but we discussed in the past, but I'll bring it up again. I like the idea that we don't use any taxpayers' money. We'd rather see it used for the beautification of the town itself.
It's not the taxpayers, not the taxpayers' money, it's the money of the people who are parked in the downtown business district. So it's really a separate concept. So, but I would like you to propose it that way rather than.
I will definitely propose it tomorrow and Thursday morning.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. So that was assistance, that was number 13. Number 14 is showmobile for the Rockland Bergen Music Festival. I have a motion for this event, Jerry Batari. Second over here from Paul Valentine. All in favor say aye.
And again,
The ayes have it.
again, on this particular music festival, this is a son of Orangetown, Joe Durso, is doing this, has done so much in this town in terms of volunteer activity. As a matter of fact, he's here every year for the 9/11 ceremony for the PBA. And it's a thing where he's done a phenomenal job on this in really raising the exposure of this particular music festival that's at the Masonic Campground. So, yeah, it's a
No, it's a great music festival. Encourage everybody to go down there and enjoy it.
Joe does a great job.
Certainly thank Joe Durso for his work in the community. Number 15 is various supports from various departments for the grand opening of the Rockland Gaelic Athletic Association's new clubhouse, starting on July 7th. Do you hear a motion for this? From Troy, second from Batari. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 16 is assistance for another event, which is the Elks Club Father's Day race. I guess it's retroactive. I'll make a motion for this. Second from Divany. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Number 17 is increasing the budget line in Parks and Rec for contracts with outside vendors by $5,500 to pay, partially offset the cost of a survey along the rail trail.
Moved.
Thank you very much. A second over here from Jerry Batari. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Number 18. Okay, so this project, the sewer project, it's funded through the Environmental Facilities Corporation. The town has been able to sign up for more 0% financing, if I have that right, Jeff. But it's not something you can just do as a housekeeping matter. It requires a public hearing.
No, this is to improve, increase the maximum estimated cost from $2 million to
$2,500, extra $500,000.
Yeah, so.
And that's what this public hearing is about, to satisfy the requirements of that form of financing for this project. I thank Jeff Bensick and his staff for working with the folks on the wastewater treatment plant to organize this. And so that sets the hearing.
July 11th.
July 11th at 8:05 PM.
Moved.
Second for myself. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. There's some new business. Maybe somebody can explain number 19. I'm not familiar with the details. Setting a public hearing for amending a chapter 12 of the town code and amending chapter 43.
Excuse me,
Is this the matter that you're working on with Rob McGreen on top?
No.
did the previous one
Help me out
require a
here.
roll call, or no?
Oh, sorry.
It looks like it did.
Yeah, it does.
No, this is just
No.
Oh, okay.
for when we
okay.
actually vote on it.
Oh, okay, sorry, so this is the historic district, which needed to be, Denise Sullivan's done great work. She's going back and forth with members of the Historical Society and others, and I guess there were some minor tweaks on that. So I didn't recognize the numbers. So I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for August 15th. Do I have a second on that? From Batari, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Number 20 is the Traffic Advisory Board's recommendation to the State Department of Transportation regarding the regulation of parking along Route 9W in a particularly busy area between Closter Road and Copac Lane, or up to the entrance to Tallman Park on the east side of Route 9W. There's been complaints regarding excessive parking along the side of the highway and people crossing the street to get to the restaurant there. And the Traffic Advisory Board has reviewed it and has asked the town board to support a petition to the state to establish a no parking zone in that area.
It says
Paul, do you wanna
it says
talk
to
about
conduct a
this?
study.
I'm sorry, right, it's for them to study it.
Yeah, there's
Hopefully with the result that they'll.
pretty much like you said, due to the filling station and all of the bicyclists and the young kids who go to it, people have been parking on the one side, blocking a person's driveway, and then the people are running across the street, and cars are moving very fast down 9W. So they're basically asking for no parking on certain sections to alleviate that problem.
East and west side.
Yep.
Yep, between Closter and Copac and Closter and the Tallman Park Trail entrance.
Moved.
So, I'll second that motion. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll deliver that support letter for the study. Number 21 is certificate of plumbing registration, and there's 2 companies listed. I'll make a motion for this. Here, a second from over here. Dennis Troy, all in favor say aye. Thank you very
Aye.
much. Number 22 is a personnel action, which the town board has discussed, which changes the grade on a computer network specialist from 12 to 16. I'll make a motion for this. Do I hear a second?
I'll second
From Paul Valentine, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Number 23 is the appointment of Matthew Lenahan, our computer network specialist, provisional, grade 16, effective June 21, 2016. I should say 2017. Do I hear a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Troy, second from Valentine. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank Matt for his good work for the town. Number 24, Jeff, if you could just maybe lead us through this. This is a series of budget line reallocations and usage of fund balance.
Yes, as we continue to work with the auditors, they've asked us to make these 2016 budget adjustments, and it reflects, as you can see, a lot of additional spending in workers' comp lines because we had a number of cases that settled in 2016. So obviously our overall estimates were low, and this makes adjustments to take that money from fund balance. As a reminder to the board, although the final audited numbers are not out yet, we budgeted to use $2.5 million in fund balance, and we ended up using $500,000 of that. So that is the first year we've actually decreased in fund balance since I've been here. But it's really due to an extraordinary high workers' comp settlements in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And just
It's hard. It's a hard thing to budget for because
yeah, on that it was $2 million. Overall, yes, but workers' comp was $2 million alone in 2016
versus what did we budget for?
Our budget of 1.1 million. So that was 900,000 over. We've increased it to 1.4 million for 2017, and we're tracking below that this year. But workers' comp is highly unpredictable. We had someone break his back, and that was a massive cost to us. And we had another employee who had 11 workers' comp claims against the town, and that was settled. But that results in big payouts.
Mm-hmm. So it's something to keep an eye on as we budget for 2018, and we think about where our fund balance is at. Thank you, Jeff, for that. Do I hear a motion for these budget line reallocations? From Troy, second from Batari. All in favor say aye. Okay, so both of these items have to do with getting state financing and grant for dechlorinating the effluent at the wastewater treatment plant to meet new DEC regulations. They are pretty much driving that down close to zero as far as the amount of chlorine that can be permitted in the effluent. Of course, chlorine is used to kill any pathogens that might be in the effluent. So then you have to take the chlorine out. So number 26, which will come first, is a secret determination, being a type 2 action. In other words, we've considered whether secret applies and it doesn't. And I'll make a motion for that. We have a second? Yep. Over here from Jerry. All in favor say aye. Aye. So that's secret determination for number 25, which is the amendment of an earlier resolution and the the filing of an application to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation for funding from the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act for clean water projects that funds where the town, basically gets 0% financing for 75% of the cost of the project and 25% gifted from the state. So it's a deal that you can't beat. And this resolution authorizes our staff to charge ahead with that application. Can I make a motion for passing this resolution? Do I have a second? Over here. Guys, Valentine, all in favor, say aye. All right. That takes care of that. Number 27, I thank Jeff and Janice, for helping put this schedule together. It should look familiar because it's almost exactly the way it's been the last couple of years, with some dates and deadlines for the town budget process. The town, obviously our finance department, our department heads will be working on capital planning and starting to collect data and put together budgeting for next year. The assumption being that we'll stay under the tax cap for another year, so we're not going to propose legislation to break it. The town board will receive a draft budget, or the tentative budget, at a certain point in December, turn that around into the preliminary budget, have a public hearing, and so on, with a state-imposed deadline of November 20th for adopting a final budget for 2018. And we'll be inviting the town board members to review and meet with department heads and have presentations about their budgets in the usual way.
Has the finance department directed the department heads to come in with budgets at a certain percentage above the current budget? What do you send out our letter to the department heads yet? Well, I would recommend that you have them at -2, 0, 2, and 5. So -2%, 0%, 2%, and 5% increase. So we see what we've got.
See what the options might be. How's the town board feel about that? Is everybody? Yeah.
Because I know one year we didn't, and someone came in at 11%.
No, going back years ago, it was the department heads gave their wish list, and it was up to us to try and cut it back down. It's not the way it should work.
So
the department heads know what their needs are, and they also know where they can cut or not cut.
I think our approach is essentially to challenge everybody to do more with less wherever possible. And that's what we're going to do this time around as well.
All right.
So the motion from Tom Divney for this budget calendar, a second over here from Jerry. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Off to the races on that. Number 28 is the acceptance of an easement related to 155 Corporate Drive to make access to an existing town sewer line possible. I'll make a motion for this. I just need a second. Over here, maybe, Tom?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Then we have our finance director with the vouchers and the warrant. And we also need to spend a little time in executive session on this question of negotiating labor contracts with the CSEA and the PBA.
Okay, tonight's audit consists of 3 warrants for a total of $1.145 million. First warrant had 5 vouchers for $4,700 and was for project graduation. The second warrant had 35 vouchers for $165,000 and was for utilities. The third warrant had 194 vouchers for $974,000, and the following items were of interest. Number 1, Chair Wholesale, $20,000 for police weapons. That's from grant money, actually, not funded. Number 4, Goosetown, $26,000 for police rental equipment. Number 5, Jomar Technologies, $11,000 for police computers. Number 10, Department of Civil Service, $697,000 for healthcare. And number 13, Tilcon, $16,000 for highway materials. Any questions on the audit?
Nope. Thank you, Jeff. Alrighty. I'll make a motion to accept the audit. Do I have a second? Patari, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Jeff's gonna have a sheet of paper for us to sign. So once again, we do have a couple of adjournments, but are there any other matters that the town board wants to discuss before we have an executive session on the union contracts? Anything else? Okay. So with that, I will make a motion for executive session. Do I have a second over here? Patari, all in favor, say aye. So we got that covered.
Add one more adjournment too.
Okay.
Robert E. Lee. Northern Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee.
Is the father of A.J. Lee from the
Okay.
Pro Shop.
Oh, goodness.
And
Okay. In the names of these four individuals, Nora McDonough, Kathleen McGuire, Robert McGrudin, and Robert E. Lee, make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
2 days ago.
Second from Patari. All in favor, say aye. The ayes have it.
Tom Moore's mother-in-law.